Hello everybody, it's Julia here from Highly Sensitive Tarot. I realise it's been a while since I've done a video again, but as per usual, it's been my fibromyalgia flaring up and causing problems and just leaving me with very little energy to do anything extra really. But anyway, I'm not feeling too bad today, so I thought it would be a nice thing to do a top beginner friendly tarot decks out of the decks out of my collection. This is my top 6. I probably could have included a couple of other decks, but I think 6 is enough. And really these are my current picks for beginners and people new to tarot. They're all Rider Waite Smith based, and if you can read one, you should be able to read them all. They're all mass market decks and they're all easily accessible and easily found. I've got lots of reviews of individual decks on my channel, as well as a Learn Tarot series that I'm still working my way through, so I thought this would be a good video really to go alongside my Learn Tarot series. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about tarot cards actually, in a little introduction. I'm going to put timestamps in this video for each of the decks, because I appreciate I can waffle on sometimes, and sometimes you don't always want to see the whole video, you just want to see bits of it, so I will put some timestamps in. But anyway, as I said, these are all easily found. They all follow the Rider Waite Smith format, which I believe is the most helpful for beginners and people new to tarot. It's the system that I learned probably 30 years ago now. It's the system I was taught, and I've kind of stuck with it really, because it resonates, it makes sense to me. So I think if you're a beginner, you need decks really that have a lot of information for your intuition to grab hold of while you're learning sort of the basic meanings of the cards. And so for me, that means that the cards need to be colourful. That may not be the case for you, but for me it definitely is. And they also need to be emotional. You know, I need to be able to see perhaps the emotions on the faces of the people in the cards. And without those things, even now I can struggle to relate to cards intuitively anyway. So I believe there are 3 main systems of tarot that are popular today, and then there's the many, many clones that have come from these main decks. One of the first and oldest tarot decks that came about was the Marseille Tarot. I hope I've said that right, Marseille. It has some very Christian-based imagery, and the minor arcana are primarily pip cards, which are like playing cards. These cards have been around for centuries and were originally games rather than used for divination. I did have a Visconti Sforza deck, which is one of these kind of Marseille type tarot decks, and I think the deck that I had originally came from the 15th century, but I think most of these decks were probably popular around the 17th and 18th century. But anyway, then came the Rider Waite Smith deck, which was a kind of resurrected and reimagined deck in 1909. It was printed by the Rider Company, and it was designed by Arthur Edward Waite, who was an academic and mystic, and the cards were illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith, so that's how we get the Rider Waite Smith name. Both Arthur and Pamela were members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which, if that's something you're interested in, you can look up. There's lots of information about that. And they wanted to repurpose the tarot for divination and esoteric purposes. And from this, in 1909, has come so many versions and variations and clones, and just millions of copies really sold around the world. And then lastly, in 1930 and sort of 1940 time, the infamous Aleister Crowley created the Thoth Tarot. And this was his attempt to update some of the esoteric imagery from the Rider Waite Smith deck and add to the occult knowledge of the cards. His cards were illustrated by Lady Frida Harris, and they're very interesting to study. They're not cards that I particularly resonate. I have tended to stay away from his decks and clones just because really I don't have the time or energy to learn all of the symbolism and the occult knowledge that goes with them. And I guess I'm not entirely comfortable with some aspects of Crowley's nature. I have recently bought the Tarot of the Sun and Moon, which I believe is a Thoth-based tarot, and I do love it actually. It's easily read by me, but I'm not sure that I would buy his own particular deck. Some of the newer decks, the more contemporary decks around these days, like the Sun and Moon Tarot, have combined elements from all three approaches. Another deck that has done this is the Mary L Tarot, which I recently reviewed on my channel, and these cards are spectacular. Each one of them is an actual work of art. I could read them intuitively or with my knowledge of Rider Waite Smith systems, but I'm at the moment reading the book and really trying to absorb all of the information in the book because there's just so much really, and I'm currently using them for my own shadow work really as a way to understand them more deeply. Anyway, they're absolutely beautiful, not particularly recommended for beginners unless you feel them really very strongly. Anyway, as I said, there'll be timestamps in the description box below if you didn't want to watch the whole video, but it'd be great if you did. So if you would like to give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, that would be fantastic. I've got lots of different playlists. But anyway, I'm going to pause the video and I will be back with the first deck. Okay, so this is the Rider Waite Smith deck, and this is my first deck. I appreciate that this is a deck that many people are aware of, but I couldn't do a beginner's tarot video without showing some versions of the Rider Waite Smith deck. So I've got three here. These are the three decks that I've got in my collection, and this is my favourite deck out of the three. This is the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot, which is in a beautiful little box. I really absolutely love this deck of cards. It comes with quite a nice chunky little guidebook, but the cards themselves are just the most beautiful cards. They're a little bit shiny but not too shiny, and the imagery on the cards is beautiful colours, I think, and I just really like that they don't have borders on them. That can be something that I can find quite annoying about tarot cards. So as you can see, these are absolutely beautiful cards. This is the back of the cards. They're really nice thick cards. They handle well, they shuffle well. They're just beautiful really. But anyway, they are my favourite out of the various clones and different versions of the very traditional Rider Waite Smith decks. And I also have got two others here that I wanted to show you. This is the Radiant Rider Waite Smith deck, which is another deck that I enjoy and I use quite a lot in my readings here on YouTube. They're not as good cardstock, to be honest. They don't come in such a nice little box. They don't have such a nice little guidebook. And they also have a border, which I know a lot of people don't really enjoy. But the cards themselves, the colours on the cards, as the name Radiant would imply, are just stunning. They really, really sort of stand out. As you can see, the colours are extremely vibrant. Just really, really nice cards. Exactly the same cards as the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot, but just in a much more vivid form of the colours, as you can see. And I think, you know, if you're like me, sometimes colours can really quite strongly influence your intuition, and I think it does for me. So there we go. So that's the Radiant Rider Waite Tarot. And then lastly, what I've got here in this little bag is, and you know, to be honest, I don't even know the name of these, but I'm sure if you like them, I'm sure if you searched around and looked for the back of these cards, you'd find them. These were my first ever tarot deck, and I bought these at least 30 years ago, and they are extremely well worn, as you can see. They're a bit grubby, they're a bit bent, but they are very, very sentimental to me. And to be honest, I don't, got my hair stuck in there. To be honest, I don't use them to read for anybody else. I just use them to read for myself. You know, they have absorbed so much of my energy over the decades that I wouldn't use them to read for anybody else, to be honest. They are for me. But as you can see, they're not quite so vibrant as the Radiant Rider Waite, and not as nice really, I guess, as the Radiant Wise tarot that I showed you either, but perfectly fine, and like I said, have got great sentimental value to me. As I said, I don't, to be honest, know the different clone name of this deck, but if you looked for this blue background, I'm sure you'd find them. I've seen lots of other tarot readers use them. So yeah, these three decks that I've just shown you here. These are various clones of the 1909 or whatever it was I said, it's gone out of my head now, of the Rider Waite Smith deck that was by Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith. So there we go. I shall be back in a sec with another deck. Okay, so this next deck is the Morgan Greer Tarot. I don't know a great deal about Morgan Greer and who this person was or is. I've bought the little set in a tin, and I use them primarily for clarifying when I'm doing tarot readings, but the more I use them, actually, the more I've come to love them, to be honest. Let's just see if in the book it might say anything about Morgan Greer. What does it say? The tarot's popularity, however, did not flourish until after the turn of this century, with the emergence of the Rider Waite deck and the interpretations of the ancient symbols by authorities such as Arthur Edward Waite and Paul Foster Case. The Morgan Greer Tarot was the first modern deck based upon the combined research of these two leaders in the field. So I don't actually know who Paul Foster Case is, but if you do and you'd like to tell me in the comments, that would be great. But anyway, I do really like these little decks in a tin. They're really quite practical, and you know, you can kind of take them with you wherever you go. You can just stick them in your bag. They're, you know, they're really nice little cards. And the reason why I bought these, to be honest, is because I just love, again, the colour of these cards. They really do stand out, and I would imagine in the full-size deck they really do. They are, you know, they follow completely the same themes as the Rider Waite Smith deck. It's just the colours stand out that much more. And I think also the other thing about these cards is the focus is very much more on the individuals in the cards, rather than the scenery around them, if you know what I mean. Like with this card here, you don't see all of the scenery around this person, you're just seeing the person. And again here with the King of Cups, we normally see quite a lot more of the background and the scenery, don't we, with these cards. But here we focus very much on the people in the cards. But I like them very much. And if you've learned the symbology and you've learned the interpretations for the Rider Waite Smith, you'll be able to read these cards just the same. And I think in some ways, actually, these call out your intuition probably even more than some of the Rider Waite Smith sort of clones. I love the colours in them. They're really quite intense, aren't they? But anyway, there we go. So that is the Morgan Greer Tarot. Really cute little cards that you can either buy in a tin or you can buy the full-size versions of. This is the back of them. They come with a little, just a very basic little guidebook. Really nice cards. So there we go. So the next deck I'm going to talk about is the Lightseers Tarot deck. And I don't have the box for this deck anymore. I don't really know why. I think it may have got lost in my move. I don't really know, to be honest. I would expect that many of you might have seen this deck, but I couldn't do this video without including it because it's just fantastic, really. It comes with a really nice little guidebook. I think this is by Hay House. These cards were copyrighted 2019 by chrisann.com, published in the United States. Yeah. Cover design, Nick Welsh. Cover illustration, Chris Ann. Chris Ann is a deck creator, designer and magic maker. I think she's done several other decks of cards like the Muse Tarot and the Sacred Creators Oracle. But these are just beautiful, really. These are, I suppose, I mean, they're definitely Rider Waite Smith based, but they are, but they're much more contemporary and diverse, I guess. This is the back of the cards. And this is the front of the cards. As you can see, there's much more detail in the characters and the scenery and the image there. But again, if you are learning Rider Waite Smith, you will very easily be able to read these cards. I think the colours are stunning. I like the diversity in these cards. I like the feel of these cards. They have a very emotional quality to them that just makes them very easy to read, I think, to tap into with your intuition. this is never a deck that I would look at the guidebook for. I just don't think that it's necessary. But obviously if you are a complete beginner, then you will need to look at the guidebook. But they really are very beautiful cards with a lovely feel and a lovely energy about them. Gorgeous, aren't they? So there we go. That's the Lightseers Tarot deck. Really nice, really kind of inexpensive to buy, easily accessible. Beautiful cards. Okay, so this next deck is the Mystical Cats Tarot. I've got 3 decks of cards currently that feature cats heavily. I think I've got Pagan Cats and the Black Cat Tarot. But out of those 3, I do think this one, the Mystical Cats Tarot, is by far the easiest for me to read, certainly. This is by Luena Weatherstone, and the art by Mickey Mueller. Comes in quite a nice box, although I have to admit I don't really like decks that are in these sort of cardboardy affairs. I'd probably prefer these type of boxes, I think, to these big boxes. But it's got quite a nice little magnetic sort of catch on it, and the book that comes with these cards is wonderful, and I did spend a little bit of time looking at it just to see what take really Luena Weatherstone had on the Rider Waite Smith cards. But anyway, these are really nice little cards to handle. They fit nicely in your hand, they shuffle nicely. This is the back of them, and this is the front of the cards. And again, they're colourful. They have a lot of detail in them, and even though they're cats, they are really quite emotional. There's a lot of energy in these cards that, for me, make them extremely easy to read, actually. These are one of the few decks that I've got that have made me cry on occasions, reading them for myself, and when I've done tarot readings for other people, they've kind of they've really brought a tear to my eye. They really there's real feeling in these cards. There's real light and shade. You know, some of the cards that feature the more difficult energies, like the Ten of Swords, I think in this deck, well, I don't know, let me see if I flick through quickly if I can find it. There's a lot of really interesting cards in here, like this one, the Nine of Sky, which is the Nine of Swords, where we normally see somebody sort of waking up for some kind of nightmare, and we can actually see the reality of the nightmare here for this cat. You know, all the things that cats are afraid of, or are their mortal enemies, like dogs and birds of prey and other cats. I just think they really do give you a lot of information in these cards. Let me just see if I can find another one that... This one as well. I think because I love cats so much, I could very easily become emotional about anything to do with cats anyway, but this one here, the Five of Earth, which is the Five of Pentacles, the cat sat out in the snow, being left out of the celebrations indoors and the warmth of the indoors, that one breaks my heart too. If I really, you know, focused on on that emotional state, that of being left out in the cold in that way. I think, yeah, this is the one that always gets me, the 10 of Swords. And when you read the book about this card here, it's not difficult to see why. This cat here has crawled away to die, basically. You know, it's been beaten up, it's old, it's been shoved out of its clan, and this is the end, isn't it? You know, either the cat will lay down and die here, like they do, or if it's lucky, it might be rescued. But really, life is over for this cat as it knows it currently. You know, there is the possibility of rebirth. It is a 10 after all, but it's definitely an ending, isn't it? And oh, I find that really quite difficult, actually, more so than people. That's another great card, isn't it? Look, what's that? That's the 6 of Swords. You know, that cat's just like, I'm having none of that, I'm off. So that's that sort of energy of leaving troubles behind, isn't it? Do you see what I mean? These are cards that really are quite easy to read, I think, if you look at them intuitively and you really look at the images. This one is Consequences, which is justice, and you know, we can see here that this is like the cause and effect, isn't it? The cat was playing with the string and wasn't being mindful of what it was doing, so it got tangled up and kind of stuck. So anyway, I could ramble on for a long time about these cards, to be honest, because I just love them. And I would highly recommend these if you're a beginner and you like cats. So there we go. So this next deck is the Psychic Tarot deck by John Holland. And I don't use this deck too often, but I am quite fond of it, actually. And I think it's another deck that would be good for beginners, really, if you're learning, because I think this deck really helps you to get to grips with all of the different facets, I guess, of tarot. He said here in his book, I don't have the box of this, by the way. Again, this is quite an old deck, and I don't know where the box ended up, to be honest. But he said here, when I began to study and use the tarot, I noticed that the cards seemed to be reaching out to my intuitive mind, and I became increasingly aware of their colours, shapes, figures, words, numbers and symbols. And even though I knew the meaning behind each card, it was as if they were somehow talking to me, giving me more specific knowledge over and above the basic interpretations. So he's sort of developed his own deck, which he hopes will help you to tap into your own psychic abilities. And he's made quite a lot of the meaning of colours, shapes, words, symbology, divination, numerology and chakras within these cards. They are slightly different to normal Rider Waite type decks, as in pentacles, cups, swords and wands. He uses colours to replace those, and he's also called some of the major arcana by slightly different names as well. What have we got here? Like this one here, number 1, this is the Magician. You can see that it's the Magician, but he's called it awareness, which is a good keyword, isn't it, for the Magician? I'm trying to think what... I mean, in this little guidebook as well, we've also got all of the colour interpretation. We've got numerology, meanings, symbols and images. So he does explain everything in here pretty well, I think, really. But I do think if you're a beginner, you could definitely use these cards to learn. So what have we got here? We've got all of the major arcana cards. We've got physical, which are the red border cards, which I assume are pentacles. We've got emotions, which are green border, which are cups. We've got mental, which is indigo border, which would be swords. And we've got spirit, which is the violet border, which would be wands. And then we also have 7 chakra cards within this deck as well. So so that would be wands, wouldn't it? Another wands. Wands. As we can see, you know, this is the 6 of wands here. And I like that there's keywords on these cards, actually, because that does help to prompt you if you're learning and you're not sure. But I do think from the image on here, we can see what's going on, can't we? This is someone blowing their own trumpet, isn't it? Which is very 6 of wands energy. We've got the 9 of swords here, suffering in silence, which is a good way to explain the 9 of swords. What else have we got? We've got number 4 here, which is the emperor, and we've got the keyword authority there. We've got number 1 in the green border, which is cups, and that's love begins. That's very Rider Waite Smith in its imagery, isn't it? We've got number 10 there, which is destiny, and that would be the wheel of fortune, and we can see that there, can't we? We've got number 1 again here with the swords, which is the ace of swords, triumphant success. We've got a pentacles there, which is firm foundations, the 4 of pentacles. So yeah, these may not be the most straightforward or the easiest, but I do certainly think that as a beginner, these have a lot to offer, because I think they would really help you with learning about colours and symbols and numerology. Mental conflict. See, that's a great card, isn't it? I really like that, and the imagery of that card. There's like a person within a person, isn't there? Somebody peering out. This sort of being in 2 minds, perhaps. So yeah. Harmony, which is the lovers. Light, isn't that lovely? Look, the sun. And see, if you know your numerology with the tarot, you'll know what these are. Number 9, which is the hermit, solitude. This one is the 2 of wands, the waiting game. So there we go. As I said, not the most straightforward, but I do think these cards for beginners have an awful lot to offer. Okay, so we're on to the last deck now. I'm sorry, I haven't been very good at pausing this video. You've probably noticed a couple of times that I thought I'd hit the pause button and I didn't. So apologies, you've probably seen me writing on my little pad the times on the video just so I can do my timestamps. It's embarrassing. That's because my brain is not working very well. So the last deck we've got here is the Anna Kay Tarot, and again I don't have a box for this. This is a very old deck of mine, and I think this is fantastic for beginners actually. Who is this by? By Anna Kay. This is a Llewellyn deck. Anna Kay devoted nearly 10 years to crafting this debut divination deck. She lives in Austria. Saturated with emotion and drama, the cards of the Anna Kay Tarot tell their stories through the characters' expressions on their faces and through the scenes in which they're placed. Eliminating the esoteric symbols of the traditional Rider Waite deck, the cards are read intuitively with the emotions. And I think that's what I like about this deck actually, is even if you don't have any knowledge at all whatsoever of symbology and sort of esoteric things, you could still read this deck very intuitively. The faces and the emotions displayed on these cards are really quite easy to read. I really like this deck, to be honest, and I should probably use it a bit more often. But you know what it's like when you've got lots of decks. It's hard to get round to certain decks. What have we got? The Temperance. As you can see, these are very clearly Rider Waite Smith based cards, but they're very human. You know, this is the devil here. There's all kinds of devil energy within these cards, all the excesses that people get kind of tangled up in life. The Knight of Swords, the Seven of Pentacles, the Page of Swords, Judgment. They're beautifully colourful, beautifully expressive, beautifully emotional. If you're learning Rider Waite Smith, there's no reason at all why you can't read this deck. The Lovers here, look at this, look. This is one of the few decks where you actually see people quite mature, perhaps in their older life. You know, and that really is kind of the energy of the Lovers, isn't it? Is a couple that have endured, you know, that their connection has endured. The Three of Rods, which is Wands. Some of these decks do call the different suits by different names, but I think you can quite quickly get over that. The Wheel of Fortune. What have we got here? The Ten of Swords. Look at that, look. As I said, I think they really are quite easy to read. Look at that, look. Can you see the sorrow in her face there, this lady? You can see quite easily the pain and distress in people's faces in these cards. And so I think, I do think they are very easy to read. Look at that, look, the Five of Swords. It's not difficult, is it, to work out what's going on there. The Six of Cups. Oh, and the Eight of Cups. Look, that's, you know, there's some really quite sad energy in these cards. But they're very human. You know, they're very human. They show both sides of the light and shade of our lives and our emotions really very easily. Look at that, look, the Chariot, that's beautiful. The King of Swords, the strategist, playing his game of chess there. So there we go. Really, really lovely cards with a really nice big chunky book that comes with this deck. There's a nice full page picture There's quite a lot of interpretations. There's room for little notes if you wanted to write notes in this deck, in this book. There's a few sample spreads. Really, really nice deck for beginners. So there we go. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I'm sorry that I was faffing around a bit with the timestamps there. But on my phone, which I'm recording on, sometimes I touch the pause button and it doesn't always stick. And if I don't check, I can be sort of doing my own thing and realise that I haven't paused it. But anyway, if you're a beginner or new to tarot, I do hope that this video has been helpful for you. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please do give me a thumbs up if you did. And do have a look at my other playlists. I've got a Learn Tarot series I'm starting. I've got lots of other deck reviews and lots of different readings. Timeless ones, astrology ones, pick a card readings. But anyway, thanks so much. I hope you're all well, and I hope to see you again soon.